Back WNST in the afterglow of all things Super Bowl 52 and Minnesota. And for those of you who hate the Eagles, love the Eagles, hate their fans, like Jim Schwartz or Torrey Smith or Joe Douglas or whatever, it's all in the books now, right on down to the Mummers costume and Jason Kelsey. And I don't think anyone perished during the celebration, which is a little bit shocking to me. But this guy was part of all things post-game on a 10-below night in Minnesota. The last time I saw him, I think champagne and cigars were involved. He is the Eagles insider. Out on Twitter, and you can follow his journey there. He is Dave Spadaro, and he is still a little punch drunk, a little hungover. How long does the Philly special last, Dave? Honestly, you were enthusiastic even before they won the Super Bowl. I can't imagine what this last week and a half has been like for you, man.
You know, Nestor, the new year in the NFL begins March 14th, so why don't we just party until then? How's that sound?
I give it 5 years. I mean, we just got done partying from 13 with our thing, really.
Yeah, it's really amazing. I mean, look, Philadelphia, we all know the reputation of the city and the fans and the passion and the nastiness and the desperation. Well, I think all that's gone, and it's been replaced by a Super Bowl victory, by a parade for the ages, by love in the streets, by strangers being kind to each other. I'm not sure if I recognize this city right now, but it certainly is a lot of fun. And the Eagles, boy, what a crazy ride in 2017 to get there and to get past the New England Patriots. Remarkable. And a team, Nestor, that, I'm sure we'll talk about this, that could be here to stay for a while.
Dave, tell everybody what you do for the Eagles and how long you've been involved in this, because I think there are 60 and 70-year-old people that have just been fans. I mean, as you know, I was a season ticket holder with the Eagles from 86 to 92, and we didn't have a team here during the Buddy Ryan and Rich Kotite. I mean, I went up, sat at the Penrose Diner, read the Philly Inquirer every Sunday morning, walked down Passayunk, across the Broad and Pattison at the Vet and all that. I think of the fans and all that, but then I think of people like you that even out on the front of your Twitter, you're pictured in the background behind Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman and Doug Peterson as literally Eagles insider on Twitter.
Yeah.
There's an inside part of this that, I'm not on the inside of the Ravens. I'm as close as I can be, and I've written a couple of books and have partners like Brian Billick here, but there is something different about being on the inside and seeing Andy Reid go away, Chip Kelly blow the place up at the end, the Christmas party, all the things that were ugly 2.5 years ago, including the draft where you had too many quarterbacks and a lot of controversy followed all of this around that led to that parade last week that your eyes have seen,
Absolutely. So I am a member of the organization, been a member of the organization since 97. Prior to that, ran the team newspaper called Eagles Digest since 1989.
As a fan, this whole thing started with your love of the Eagles, right?
Oh, yeah. Grew up in the area, loved the Eagles. In college, started covering them for my college radio station at Temple University. I've been to every game since the strike of 1987, first as a newspaper reporter in the suburbs of Philadelphia, then as the editor of Eagles Digest, and then as a member of the team. And my job is to get the message out, create content, feed the beast. There are Eagles fans around the world, and they want content, and I have an opportunity to present exclusive content from behind the scenes, and we do that. And so we're really aggressive doing it, and Eagles fans, of course, love it, and I've made a career doing it. And going through this Super Bowl process, being the MC of the parade, the first Super Bowl parade in the history of Philadelphia, absolutely a career highlight, a career-defining highlight, something I've always dreamed about. And, Nestor, I couldn't be happier about that. And, it's fascinating to find out, as you've, through your career, gotten to know people and they tell you the truth, why they make decisions, what goes into those decisions. I enjoy finding out the reasons why they make the decisions rather than just speculating, oftentimes incorrectly, on why decisions are made. Sometimes the decisions work out, and sometimes they don't.
It would be really interesting to sit with you for a couple of hours and talk about this stuff, because I know you know the answers to the questions. But, I wrote a book, Purple Rain 2. I re-released it a couple of weeks ago. And really, for me, when you're talking about the story, when you want to present it as a full story from the outside in, probably this story begins with probably the Chip Kelly Christmas party, right? That was sort of the uncoming, the undoing. And my book began with Brian Billick getting fired, literally.
Yeah.
I said to Brian, you're going to talk to me for the book, but the book begins with you getting shot. Let's start with that, because that's really where the Ravens' journey really began, with finding John Harbaugh, which was chapter 1, literally. Billick out, Harbaugh in. Jason Garrett said no to Steve Bisciotti and went back. There were a lot of things that went into this, and Peterson's probably, it's got to start with that, right?
Well, I think Chip's unraveling was before that Christmas party, that holiday party, which really wasn't a story. I mean, it was portrayed as a story, but the way the schedule worked out, there was some trying to move the date around. It was kind of ugly, and there was a Monday night game involved. But
that pissed off Jeff, right? I mean,
everything pissed off Jeff about Chip. I mean, this team was getting destroyed after quick starts that season. I mean, they started 9-3 the year before, and they blew it in December. And they in 2015 now, they were getting their asses kicked, and they were getting their asses kicked at home. And you would look up in the fourth quarter of games, and Lincoln Financial Field was emptying. And that is something that you, as an owner, you sit there and go, what is happening here? Why is this happening? Can we reverse this? So the Chip Kelly, the loss of Chip Kelly really started, I think, probably in Thanksgiving of that year, when the Eagles went to Detroit and got embarrassed by the Lions, came back home, got embarrassed by Tampa Bay. I mean, it was awful, ugly. He lost the locker room. His offense was unimaginative. Teams figured it out. They shredded the defense, which was exhausted on the field. And so that's where it begins. And then Jeffrey uttered the words, as he announced the decision to replace Chip, to remove Chip, the words emotional intelligence. He was looking for emotional intelligence. And people go, what is this, an Oprah show? What is emotional intelligence? And what Jeffrey recognized was that the head coach at that time, Chip, just did not relate to the rest of the organization, did not relate to the locker room. So he wanted to find a coach who could do that. Doug Peterson happened to be that hire. And when Doug was hired, boy, oh boy, was he mocked as the lapdog, as the yes man, as the easy hire, as the push-around guy.
Well, as Andy Reid Part 2 as well, right? A little bit of that.
Yeah, but Andy was a really tough, stubborn, Doug was seen as a good guy, nice guy, happy-go-lucky, do whatever you want to do guy. And I think fans in Philadelphia wondered, why would I want to go back to Andy Reid 2.0? We didn't win a Super Bowl with Andy Reid. But as it turned out, look, then Howie Roseman comes back into power, makes the move to get Carson Wentz. Joe Douglas comes on board. They have this with Andy Weidel, tremendous group of personnel evaluators. And in the last 2 years, Nestor, they've made the right calls in the draft. They've added people in free agency. They've made shrewd trades that have paid off, Jay Ajayi, Tim Jernigan, etc. And here we are talking about a Super Bowl team. So it's been a remarkably fast turnaround, and really is a lesson for the entire NFL. You can be in the outhouse 1 year, and 3 years later you're winning the Super Bowl. And what the Eagles now have to realize is that it can go the other way as well.
Dave Spadaro joining us here from the Philadelphia Eagles, an Eagles insider and the MC of the parade. And you didn't wear a mummers. By the way, I got so much I could talk to you about, but I want to talk about Kelsey particularly, and we'll go backwards to all the Ravens people and the Joe Douglases, because I got a million things to hit with you on this. But when the game ended, I went down to the holding tank. I think I saw you down there. I saw a whole bunch of the Philadelphia media down there. And Kelsey was the first guy out, and I didn't really know who he was. Just a white guy with a beard. I knew he was a lineman. I couldn't even see the back of his jersey. I don't know what every player's face looks like. Certainly not the lineman. I got my own team and challenges here to deal with. But he said he couldn't even speak. And I've been in a lot of these Super Bowl post games and national championships, a ton of World Series, where, I'm not emotionally invested one way or another, other than I've loved Jim Schwartz for 20 years, and, I have friends on the team, but I don't even know who this guy is. Dude, he made me well up. I mean, I was 5 feet away, and I got strangely emotional seeing him get emotional, and I didn't even know who he was. Then I ran into him in the bathroom at 2:30 in the morning at the post-game party, and then all of a sudden I'm away, I'm sick, I look up, he's in I didn't know what the hell a mummer's costume was, but and then of course he gave the rather profane Philadelphia-esque speech. But of all the guys to sort of latch on to in this whole thing, I latched on to Jason Kelce through this whole story.
Brilliant. I mean, the rant was a brilliant one. I mean, he went right down the line, named everybody on the starting roster, a couple of reserves, was just brilliant in its madness. As a public speaker, and you know this, Nestor, you do it. You're off the cuff too. That was a rant for the ages. It was tremendous. There was profanity in it. That was unfortunate, but it really resonated with Philadelphia, which has clearly embraced this underdog thing. And Kelce is somebody who a year ago people wanted to trade, had a so-so 2016 season, undersized, late-round draft pick, not particularly strong, not particularly flashy, had an all-pro year in 2017, and just let it all out at the parade. And I think that was kind of the way this team was structured. In a way, some misfits, in a way, some cast-offs, in a way, players that teams really didn't value highly. And then all of a sudden, they're 13-3 in the regular season and making this charge. So Kelce anchors, as you know, Nestor, it all begins at the offensive line. And Jason Kelce anchors maybe the best offensive line in the National Football League. Tremendously athletic. He made that group go. They were able to survive the loss of Carson Wentz. They were equally dangerous running the football, passing the football. The balance was terrific. They had a bunch of running backs who nobody wanted. LeGarrette Blount, nobody wanted. What's the kid? Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. Corey Clement, undrafted, who came on to be a terrific player. They got mileage out of Jay Ajayi, who was a problem child in Miami. So Kelce's speech and his demeanor and his mentality perfectly fit what this roster was. Players like Patrick Robinson, a journeyman cornerback who, injury-prone, comes into Philadelphia, has a terrific season in the slot. Players like Nick Foles, who was going to retire and came on to replace Carson and win the Super Bowl MVP. So it really epitomized what his first of all, a mummer struts on New Year's Day in Philadelphia. They've done it for generations. It epitomized what Philadelphia is, and Philadelphia can now take its head out from under the NFL pillow and look up with pride, knowing that they finally have a Lombardi trophy, which has been a source of embarrassment for decades.
I just found out he's a Cleveland kid, too. They never win anything there, so God bless him. He got a Cavaliers
University of Cincinnati. Like, who thinks there's no glamour in University of Cincinnati, so Jason Kelce made himself into a legend in the city of Philadelphia and with Eagles fans everywhere.
Boy, there's so many things to talk about. Dave Spadaro joining us here. He is Eagles Insider out on Twitter. I'm sure you'll be writing books and tombs and all that stuff. And how many things do you have that have, like, Eagles World Champion shirts, hats, all that already? And you're actually getting a ring out of this, a very large ring from what I understand. Yeah,
I keep it to a minimum. I'm not a big flashy guy. I've got a couple of hats, I've got a couple of tops, but nothing crazy, because inside is what matters, Nestor. It matters inside. But I will say this, the Eagles will set NFL records and their fans for the most merchandise purchased after a Super Bowl victory. That's how desperate this city was. They have 5 football fields long of merchandise that's in the pro shop at the stadium that will probably last, if they're lucky, through mid-March, and then they'll get another 5 football fields long of merchandise. It is nonstop traffic at the store. Fans are eating this up and will continue to eat this thing up. It has made people's lives. At the parade, 85-year-old men and women coming out going, I can't believe I've lived to see this day. The Eagles won a Super Bowl in my lifetime.
Dude, I've been through this twice. I rode in the parade in 01, and I still give Mike Flynn an incredible... Speaking of linemen who wore number 62, Flynn lost the videotape that he and I made on his little camcorder in 2001 of us in the parade. He lost the tape. So 17 years later, I'm trying to track down Kim Herring, anybody that would, Trent Dilfer, who was on the float next to us. I have no video, no pictures. I have one grainy picture someone sent me 15 years ago of the parade. So, I mean, things happen in these purple tent cities, and I'm going to give you some pro advice here, Dave, on the swag. When you go back to Minnesota, let's say next year or the year after, everything will be 10 cents that says Super Bowl 52 on it, because it'll circulate in Minnesota forever. So, the next time you're in Minnesota, just pick up, like I did, the raincoat a year later for $5 that was $120, or the leather bomber that was $400. You'll pick that up for $49. I'm telling you, dude, all that Super Bowl 52 stuff, a year from now, you'll get it dirt cheap out in Minnesota. Just trust me on that. Dave,
that is a great idea.
We played in Tampa the year after with Elvis Gerback back in 2001. And I threw a party at Whiskey Joe's that was legendary the night of the Super Bowl. A year later, we threw a party. We had a couple hundred people show up, but a guy pulled up in a semi, literally in a full truck, unloaded the back truck, and the whole truck was full of Super Bowl 35 merchandise. 9 months later, everything was 10 cents. So I'm just letting you know that, that you can get a little discount on that.
Do that, man. That's a great idea.
We went 12 minutes before you mentioned Nick Foles, dude, in this conversation. And the one thing, backup quarterbacks are never supposed to win, Hostetler aside and all that stuff. They're not supposed to be good enough. The thing I saw about him wasn't just the makeup and the moxie. Boy, he threw the ball well. He threw the ball accurately. I watched Ryan Mallett run around here for a couple of months back in July and August. The ball never went where it was supposed to go. And, Blake Bortles got his team into an AFC Championship game and has no idea where the ball's going. Foles had incredible command of what he does and what he does well, and probably as a backup quarterback, Peterson and Frank Reich probably reined all of that in to make him make the throws that he was not only capable of making, but capable of making on a rope, quite frankly. He made some great throws in the postseason, man.
Great throws. He moved in and out of the pocket well. He gave his receivers a chance to make catches. He threw the ball early with anticipation. And, it's interesting, Nestor, this is how quickly things change. Nick Foles steps in for Carson in December at L.A. Eagles come back to win the game. He then goes to New York, plays the Giants, 4 touchdown passes. Christmas night, the Raiders come to town. Nick plays poorly. The offense struggles. They win at the end. And going into the playoffs, reporters actually asked Doug Peterson, would you consider turning to Nate Sudfeld, who's this third-string, second-year quarterback, if Nick Foles struggles? And then a month later, he's a Super Bowl MVP. So they really used I credit the coaching, John DeFilippo, who took the job in Minnesota as the OC, Frank Reich, Doug Peterson. They had a bye week prior to the first playoff game. They took that time. They broke him down a little bit. They gave him some reps. They looked at him and said, what is going to work with Nick Foles? What can we use here to really get Nick into a comfort zone? They reincorporate these run-pass options. They made sure to get the short and intermediate passing game going in the Atlanta Falcons game in the divisional round, and then it was bombs away against Minnesota, bombs away against the Patriots, and Nick Foles played the best quarterback of his life. Now, we remember 2013, 27 touchdown passes, 2 interceptions, Pro Bowl year, MVP out in Honolulu. Good quarterback, had a lot of rust, had a lot of lack of confidence, had a lot of damage done in the years that ensued. The last year, Chip Kelly goes out to St. Louis, and Jeff Fisher gets poisoned out there. Uses a season in Kansas City as the backup to Alex Smith to really resurrect his confidence. And then the Eagles did a terrific job with him this season. So he's the number 2 quarterback here. He is on top of the world, and we'll see what happens with Nick Foles, but he's got 1 year left here. Eagles are in a great situation at quarterback. They've got 3 of them, and they feel really good about all 3.
Dave Spadaro joining us here. He is Eagles insider, or Eagles, as they say up in South Jersey in the land of Joe Flacco. You can find him out on Twitter or at Eagles.com. Hundreds of thousands of crazed Eagles fans follow him out online as well. A big part of this story for me in Baltimore, and I know you know this, and I didn't even have you on the show. You were running around on Radio Row. I didn't even have Baldy on at the Super Bowl. I didn't have anybody. I didn't have asking anybody up there because everybody was so busy. I figured I'd get you guys in the aftermath of all of this. But there's so much purple running around up there, and you've already mentioned Torrey Smith. You've already mentioned Corey Graham. You already mentioned Tim Jernigan and Joe Douglas and Andy Weidel. But the Douglas and Weidel part of this, and even bringing back Torrey Smith to the East Coast, bringing in Tim Jernigan, who was part of the Joe Douglas draft around here a couple of years ago. Some thoughts about the purple contingent, because there's a lot of Ravens running around up there with green rings now.
Absolutely, and they were really important in the whole thing. And Torrey Smith, veteran experience, knows how to win a Super Bowl, had an inconsistent season, but made some really big plays in the postseason. Still has a lot of speed. Was terrific for this team in the locker room. Love what Torrey brings to the table. Tim Jernigan, explosive player inside, shrewd trade to get him, and just really at the cost of exchanging draft position in the third round with the Baltimore Ravens. They signed Jernigan to a long-term deal. He and Fletcher Cox teamed very well together. The Eagles were the best team in the NFL against the run. So Jernigan did a terrific job with the Eagles. Corey Graham proved to be a very valuable piece, played a lot in the Super Bowl. When the Eagles went to two linebackers, they would move Malcolm Jenkins down into that quasi-linebacker area. They'd bring Graham in as the starter at the safety position, and he gave them a lot. So he played very, very well. In the personnel department, Joe Douglas is the vice president of player personnel, terrific eye for talent, works extremely well with Howie Roseman, and really the two of them with Andy Weidel helped build what the Eagles have here today, and that's a really young, good, deep, talented core on the roster that, again, should be around in contention for quite a while. So as you guys in Baltimore benefited from somebody like John Harbaugh, the Eagles now benefiting from the influence of several former Baltimore Ravens.
Last thing for you, where do you go from here? And certainly the hangover of all of this is having to go and draft. And, I spent some time bending an elbow with Joe Douglas and Andy Weidel, and I know you were part of that a week before, the Sunday before the Super Bowl. We went out sort of a late nighting with the scouts, and they were working. I mean, they literally we're set up there at the Radisson Blu at the end of the Mall of America, breaking down film on the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday before the Super Bowl, because there can be no downtime with the Indy Combine coming 2 weeks from now, and I'm sure I'll see you out there freezing our asses off again, right?
Yeah, it's amazing that the business year in the NFL is March 14th. It begins March 14th at 4 o'clock. That's when free agency begins. That's when contracts are changed, cuts, reduced, new deals done. So you realize that, one thing, Nestor, that you really realize, that for the first time ever, the Philadelphia Eagles are the only happy team in the NFL, because there's only one happy team in the NFL. The other 31 teams didn't win the Super Bowl. So it's great. It's a great feeling to have. At the same time, you can't walk around patting yourselves on the back too much, because the new year starts and there's no mercy, and teams are going to gun for you. And the Eagles are in a tough division, and it's a very difficult schedule. So what's next for the Eagles is they've got to figure out the salary cap. They've got to figure out the free agent strategy. They've got to figure out who stays, who goes, what assets they have, what kind of trades they're going to make. Howie Roseman's made more of them than anybody in the NFL, and there are going to be some tradable pieces here should teams show interest. So I think it's going to be a very interesting, challenging, and taxing time for the Eagles in the month to come.
And beyond that, the expectation of the R word repeat, right? Like, one's not enough. Dude, they're like potato chips when you get them. I mean, I got two of them. I want a third, right?
Yeah, and they've got a quarterback in Carson Wentz who's going to be, as we all know, one of the best, if not the best in the league here. Very motivated to come back from that injury. Was extremely supportive during the Super Bowl run, but let's face it, he wanted to be out there. So he's coming back from the torn ACL, LCL, gunning for that first game when the Eagles open the 2018 season, and is the franchise quarterback moving forward. And when you have that piece, Nestor, you have a lot going for you. They've got 20 of 22 starters signed. They've got a good group of young players coming up, should be competitive on the roster, and should be a team that will be in contention next season.
He is Dave Spadaro. Spadaro, you can follow him at Eagles Insider. And for all of this and the parade and all that stuff, was it what you expected it to be from waiting around 30, 40 years for this to happen, Dave?
I've dreamed of it my entire life, and yes, it's been everything that I anticipated it being. On the float, in the parade, emceeing the first parade in Super Bowl history in Philadelphia. Dream come true, Nestor, and it continues. And so I'm going to just enjoy it, keep working hard, and hope that there's another one in my lifetime.
All right, man. Got to run the ball. Hey, always a pleasure. It was great seeing you guys have so much fun there. For all the good people in Philadelphia, not the people that were yelling things at my wife the last 2 times we were up there or throwing things at my wife and, accusing her of being a lady of the night and the other things that happened. For the good people, for the people like you, I am very, very happy. And we certainly made a night of it there. Dude, even in our own Super Bowl runs and the 2 we've won, I did attend the party in 01. I did not attend the party in New Orleans in 13. It was exclusive, and I had too much work to do. But I attended your party, and I did it in a legendary fashion, bro. I was on the 2:30 bus, okay? I went from the bus back to the room, packed the bag, went to the airport. I had a 5:20 a.m. flight out of there. So I literally did an all-nighter, like Ric Flair. I went all night with Philadelphia Eagles fans. So there, I'll always have that memory to have it.
It was a great party, and it was great to see you, and I'll see you down the road, Nestor.
And I even ran into Mike Trout. So as a bonus, I got the best baseball player on earth next to me. So
excellent.
Be well, Dave.
Hey, a winner for you too. You be well, and hey, have a great season.
Show me your ring, all right?
I sure will.
It'll have a lot of diamonds in it. Dave Spadaro joining us here. Eagles Insider out on Twitter as well as Eagles.com. Nobody covers the team from the inside better than Dave. Great to have him aboard, and I hope at some point he sobers up from the long celebration of tasty cakes and cheesesteaks and soft pretzels and all the other things that they're doing up there. You can find me out in the bay at Twitter.com, Audio Vault, 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. Big thanks again to our friends at Howard Bank for sponsoring our Super Bowl coverage as well as being with us here at WNST as a partner for all of our community stuff. That's going to be kicking in March with our Thursday morning community and charity chats that I'm putting together. Made some changes. You can go read about that out at WNST.net. You can certainly toss me an email anytime, nasty@WNST.net. We're on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. If you're heading to Canton, Ohio for the Ray Lewis celebration, do it with us. Know the Ravens are playing that Thursday night game, god-awful Thursday night game against the Bears. If you want to go after that, we are offering an early bus for that as well. What else did I forget? Oh, I didn't forget. Oh, text service. Yeah, when the Orioles trade Manny Machado, you'll get it first on the WNST text service. It's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. And, of course, Dennis will be here on Thursday talking about draft, Ravens, weekend, MMA, anything that's on your mind. Dennis has you covered. It is the SSV on WNST, now heard on Thursdays from 3 until 5. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports and whatever else we want.